Warning, this episode contains strong language or mature themes. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to this podcast is Uncalled For. On today's edition, Pat Lamb. And now, your host for this podcast, Mike Chernevsky.
Welcome to the very first episode of this podcast is Uncalled For. I'm Mike Chernevsky. I'm a veteran podcaster. I've produced Sunflower Brew and Wingside Coaches, for which I was also a host. This podcast will be a little different. This podcast is meant to be more of a reflection on life, an examination of what I've done and what I believe, and to do it with the people in my life. So what better way to start this podcast than with one of my oldest and dearest friends in the local film community, Pat Lamb. I've known Pat for well over 10 years now. He's a very good videographer, a very good photographer, and is also heavily involved in the Boy Scouts. So without further ado, here is the interview with Mr. Pat Lamb. So Pat, welcome to the very first episode of this podcast is Uncalled For.
Thank you, Michael. Good to see you again.
Yeah. Always. So let's start with, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into film and photography.
Well, I think I started taking pictures when I was about 12 years old. I bought a Canon Yashica camera first and a Canon camera for my brother and took photos in grade school through high school. When I went to college, I thought I was pre-med and studied chemistry and got a chemistry degree. Soon found out that probably wasn't my path in life. Started taking radio TV classes at Rockhurst and did an internship at through UMKC and American Cablevision back when they had a community access channel. We had a live show that we did, so I got to do everything from interviewer to cameraman to tape guy to everything else, kind of learned that whole business. And when I got out of there, I went to work for Brandsmart, which was an electronics store here for about 25 years. I did tape duplication and editing, as well as sold video cameras and VCRs, things like that. For those of you who remember what a VCR is, I bought my first camcorder, started an event business, and did that for almost 30 years. Shooting weddings, bar mitzvahs, making photo montages of people's life stories, and met a lot of people doing that, and basically been doing that since then. So I worked at Brandsmart 3 years and started my business about 1989, and have been doing it ever since.
Cool. Now, of course, I know you through the independent film community, and how's the community been for you?
Well, it's been a great networking thing. What's really cool about it is I've seen people like Kevin Wilmot, who were kind of early people involved, just won an Oscar for his films with Spike Lee. People like Andrew Wext, who does fantastic kind of Save the Planet wildlife videos all over the world, in China, Africa, places like that. So out of that group, which kind of started as a fun networking group of a lot of kind of video hobbyists who wanted to put little films together. There were also professionals, kind of like myself, who made our living doing video work, as well as people who had a full-time job and came there on Wednesdays and wanted to make films. And out of that, for multiple 25 plus years, a good friend Matthew Stevens started the One Night Stand, which has been kind of propelled into the 48-hour film fest all over the country when it was first started here in Kansas City. So I think it's really a unique group that not every city has, where you can basically, if you're willing to work with other people, you can pull together a crew for little or no money, go out and make a pretty incredible film now with digital technology for little or no money. The acting base is great. There's writers, actors, kind of grip, lighting people, people who write scoring music for movies. So it's a fantastic group. Kind of a little Hollywood here in Kansas City. And I'm on the board again. I took many years off doing that, but signed up for the board this year. And we're kind of trying to integrate that group to cross over with the Kansas City Women in Film, Cinema KC group, which I might be hopefully on the board of that as well. We just had a President series where we showed the movie Truman, which was shot here in town at the Truman Library. So it's kind of really a neat way of pulling together different communities of creative people, the history people, and just love the group. I love seeing the old timers like yourself and people that I've known for 20 years still coming to the meetings and helping some, even high school, college age kids who are. I know Morgan Dameron's another one who I remember she came when she was in high school at Pembroke Hill and went on to win awards at film festivals with her films. So there's really a lot of great opportunity and just fantastic potential in the people that are involved in the group.
Yeah, we've done a couple of films together.
We did Unfiltered.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
About a guy who he came up with these filtering questions because it seemed to be that the women that he would meet always fell short in some area. And at the end, the fourth question we added was, you should ask, are you a pathological liar? So not to be, what do they call it when you give away the... spoiler alert if you guys see it, but it was a fun movie. Enjoyed working with you on that one.
Well, you can't tell anybody this.
Okay, I'm listening.
I'm a fugitive.
Yeah. From?
I can't reveal the name of my home planet, but the Intergalactic Council is after me.
I don't normally say this when I meet somebody, especially somebody as attractive as you, but I think you're full of shit.
And you know what? I think you're a pig. And not from my family.
Yeah, one of my favorites. I know Dawn. She goes by Dawn Layla now in Florida. She does a lot of modeling, acting, TV commercial work's doing really well. She was one of the young ladies in the film. That I don't know. She wasn't the Balinese cats. I'm trying to remember what her quirky little thing was that she was into. But anyway, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Again, one of those. I think that was a 10-hour contest. Where
that was one night.
Write it, shoot it, edit it, and go out and find the location.
The 10 hours were up, and we were still editing it.
Still doing it. We actually didn't meet the deadline on that one.
We didn't meet the deadline. Ran long.
But it ran long. It was like 11 minutes instead of whatever the 5 or 6 it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But still one of my favorites. A friend of mine, Patrick Meyer, inspired that one and kind of wrote the script. I told him about some idea, and he just whipped a script out, and we said, let's do it. And did it.
Yeah, a lot of that film, I can actually relate to a lot of that film. And
Well, yeah, believe me, Michael, I'm too. Kind of a single guy my age. We're both in a kind of somewhere in the same 10, 15 year age span. I think it's a relatable film to people trying to date, especially within internet dating and not really knowing what kind of worms your can you're opening up is.
Yeah, which of course was the impetus of a project I tried to do.
Slobodski or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I had a Russian girlfriend once too, so we kind of have something in common on that one.
Yeah. That experience really did inform me, internet dating wise, to look out for certain things. Like if the English is bad, probably not a good thing. Another thing to look out for, I guess, is if they say they're local, but no idea what.
Yeah, it's a kind of a funny accent from somebody from Bolivar, Missouri, from Cuba, Missouri. Was that the other Cuba? Whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. What I really enjoy about film, similar to things like politics and a lot of other things, is you really have the ability to either influence people or to present a very strange world of people who collect a certain kind of thing, documentaries or a certain issue, social issues that are so much easier when somebody can sit there and watch a story about it and kind of say, oh, that kind of relates to my life. I see how, or something to look out for, or look forward to, or sometimes you can even spark interest in people and do a certain thing because of film. So it's a great medium, and I certainly enjoy working in it.
I agree. I agree 100%, especially in the terms of the getting a message out or just telling an interesting story.
Right. I'll say, I know you're involved with the Boy Scouts. I was an Eagle Scout. I was scout leader for 7 or 8 years with my 2 sons. I did some merit badge counseling, but I remember in getting merit badges in Scouts, it was kind of a mixed bag of try this, try basket weaving, try photography, try orienteering or whatever. And out of that, I had a scoutmaster who was a professional wedding photographer, had a big like a Hasselblad camera, and he brought on all the overnights. And I remember talking to him and kind of getting involved and interested in photography and what he did. And he was one of those early influences in a person that made his living doing something creative and fun that obviously he loved to do. And so I'll put in a little plug for the Boy Scouts and other organizations like that are a great organization. One little quick story: I did this thing for the Discovery Channel. It was on the dirt track NASCAR type racing, the old stock car racing, and it was a breast cancer weekend, and they had an arch of pink balloons that were all the race cars drove under when they came onto the track from the staging area, and one end of it came loose, and I believe there were 71 people working on this crew, and I was kind of in the wireless. I kind of sat next to the director and kind of pointed out what I saw coming up, and one side of the balloons came loose. And I said, well, they probably tied it in something like a square knot. They need to tie that in a bow line because it won't slip. And so I went out there and we grabbed the balloons and pulled them down. It was kind of thick fishing line, and a bow line's basically you wrap it around your waist. It's so that when you're like drowning and somebody throws you a rope, it doesn't squeeze your belly and cut you in half. So you tie a bow line. So the rabbit goes around the tree, comes out of the hole, goes around the tree, goes back down in the hole, and boom, and it won't slip. So I tied it back up, and it held the whole night. But out of 71 people, I was the only one there that could tie a bow line.
Cool.
I love that story.
That Boy Scouts in action. That stuff. No matter what you get into, I find it's still useful even in adulthood. I know the first merit badge I ever earned, music. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so much doing music anymore, but it's still a big impact on.
It's a really great opportunity, and I think a lot of times our young people, unless they come across something in life that really kind of ignites their inner flame inside them, some of them seem kind of lost. They don't really know what they want. And I know I've gone to schools and done presentation on video production years ago, and I remember these 2 young men that just really got excited about it, and so wow, that's something I can do, or take a camera and go out and tell my stories. I can find something, keep me out of trouble, keep you off the streets, and give you an opportunity to really, ultimately, you're giving back to the community when you tell a good story.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, just before I joined the troupe that was, and they were doing the cinematography merit badge, and kind of sad that I missed out on that, but fast forward a few years, I am a merit badge instructor for that merit badge.
Excellent.
And I believe we taught a class together at the merit badge forum one year.
Yeah, there's one I did for the one of the 10 hours was called the Xboxers, and what it was about was these kids who played Xbox, and one of the kids was in the game, and they got sucked into the TV, so we lined it up sideways with this big 31-inch TV downstairs and pulled them out of the TV, and then we went out and around construction sites, and it was kind of, and we went to this place down at the end of Paseo I call the Basin. It's a big kind of almost football stadium sized thing with these derricks in it and walkways. It's kind of abandoned, and we made basically a movie about them getting sucked into the video game. Cool. And it was very cool. And they were all Boy Scouts. They were all Eagle Scouts from the troop that was around the corner here. So it was kind of cool doing that.
Really cool. Really cool. And one of my cinematography stories This was merit badge for him a few years ago. And I actually got into a little trouble for it, not because of anything I did, it's because of the scouts. They decided, let's have them shooting each other and everything with plastic guns, and let's put a gay marriage in the thing.
Oh yeah, we did one with a mutual friend of ours, Andrew Ralston. We did one at this old house that was actually a very Frank Lloyd Wright-esque. It was one of Frank Lloyd Wright proteges, and it was an abandoned, condemned house off of Redbridge and about Holmes and Redbridge. And his mother owned the property next to it, so he knew about this place. We were in there. We did this movie called Uncle Shackles, and so I was this kind of bizarre hillbilly guy, and we were back there. We had tiki torches burning, and I had the shackles on my ankles, wearing these overalls and this crazy metal, funky, I don't know, helmet thing that looked kind of like a pig. And the police show up, and he's got all the "Have Guns Will Travel" on the back of his Dodge Durango with the gate open. So the cop walks up, and these oddly dressed people in this abandoned house with the fake guns there. So we had to convince him that everything was all right. But that's another thing about the film thing is it's very adventurous. You can go through the channels and get permission to do everything, but many times I know in the wedding video business, I was always of the belief that it was better to ask forgiveness than permission, because as soon as you ask permission, you usually get no as an answer. And if you just kind of do it, respectful to the place, and get in and get out, and don't kind of leave no trace, do no harm kind of thing, you're usually okay. But this is a very film-friendly city. They have done a lot of movies and things here over the years, and the police are very open to closing the street off for you if you go through those channels. So if you're doing a big production and you're spending some money on it, it's certainly worth getting the permits and things like that. But I know the film credits have come up again in Missouri. Spent a couple of years going down lobbying in Jefferson City for the MAMA organization. I think it's Motion Media Arts or something like that. And had them for many years. Up in the Air won, Winter's Bone won Sundance, and then the governor of Missouri, after passing both houses, nixed the film credits thing. And what I think they may have now realized, since there are shows out there like Ozark, about the Ozarks in the Missouri, shot in Georgia, I think, and Signs from Ebbing, Missouri, shot in another state, and many other things like that, because the other states offer film-friendly tax credits that draw really big productions, Hollywood-style movies to town. The Truman movie that I saw, I know the Article 99, I think they benefited from those. Shot here, some of them 20, 25 years ago. But we're hoping to see that happen again. We got great actors, great crew people, and certainly have fantastic locations over the two states here, Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah, I wish Kansas would get on board with that whole.
A little backward state there, yeah. I would hope Kansas would kind of see that. They got the Flint Hills. They don't have a lot. Now Missouri's kind of got these rolling hills of Europe and lakes that can look like oceans, and Smithville Lake has got some really cool stuff. And, and so there's a lot of great scenes that you can get in a short amount of space or time. And the architecture in Kansas City, I've noticed that in Truman. They use a lot of things to be the United States Capitol, and they use Union Station and different buildings that are just really awesome historical buildings. West Bottoms is another really great area of U2 did a video here. When they came to town, they just loved the area around Kemper Arena and decided to stay an extra week and shot some End of the World video here.
Wow.
I forget the song, but it's pretty cool.
You may have to look it up it might be on YouTube, but for all who knows. So, now as far as the permit thing is concerned, there's always guerrilla filmmaking, but you gotta be careful with that. I got a story from when we did Tales a few years ago, and we shot at JUCO for a little bit, and did not have permission to do so, but we got what we needed, and was able to get a lot of the episodes we needed to put together. Campus security came and shut it down.
Not surprised.
Because the big thing was one of our actors had to dress up like a ninja. And they saw the security guy, guy with a hood.
Ski mask on or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
probably not.
Yeah, Brenda, and then.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think I personally, my favorite style of movie is not one with a lot of guns and car chases and explosions. I like a good story, and I think that's really the key place to start on any movie is the idea and the script and developing that. And then the other thing that really helps, especially on these timed things like the one night stand, the 48-hour film fest, is to be adaptable, have a little foresight, maybe make a backward schedule that says I need to be done thinking about this at 10 o'clock. I need to be out on my first location by 11:30. We need to have that wrapped by 4 o'clock. Our editor maybe should be editing as we go. With the digitally, just pull the card out, swap a new one. They load that. They kind of start cutting that. And you get a good team together. What I've seen develop over the years is different teams that seem to work together over and over. They'll bring in some new people, but when you kind of have a team, that this person's really great at keeping track of continuity and what scenes we've done, and you shoot things out of sequence so that every time actor A speaks, you do all of his lines with one camera set up, and then you move over and you do the same thing with actor B, and you do maybe a master shot that they're both in, and you start learning those film techniques. And I suggest to anybody that wants to be a good cameraman to edit their own footage, because then they'll say, oh man, why did he do this? He gives me nothing. I got to jump cut these two scenes together. I have no way of shortening this or lengthening this scene to make it match my music or to do whatever. And then when you edit your own footage, you start saying, oh, well, it would have been nice if I would have cut away to a wide shot or an over the shoulder shot or just their foot tapping on the floor, anything, so that I can take that 37-second scene and cut it down to the 23 that I need without it, putting a Band-Aid over the cut so you don't see an obvious jump cut in it. So you really learn a lot of those techniques, many by trial and error. Those short festivals are something that you don't have a lot of money tied up in, because usually everybody's volunteer, and you get invaluable experience. So the next time you do go out, and maybe you've got a small or medium-sized budget, you kind of have a feel for what you're doing, and you don't make the same mistakes. Because hopefully everybody involved with this, you go out and we all make mistakes, but the smarter ones of us don't make that same mistake over and over and over again. We learn our lesson next time we go out. Oh, well, what if it rains? Well, we got to have a backup plan. Can we do the late scenes early if it starts raining and make clear up later, or work with the shadows, things like that. So anyway, fun stuff.
Yeah, another filmmaker that I did a lot of these one night stand process with our late friends, Dave Barry.
What a great guy, Dave.
Yeah. I know Dave's process, he likes to have a room writer scripts ready, usually a couple weeks in advance, if not the night before. And he'd get his actors to work with them and still find ways to work those necessary elements.
We've done a few where we had 2 or 3 options. So we had A, B, or C, and whichever one could kind of fit. For those who don't know, typically in these timed films, to make it so that you have to actually do a lot of that work the day of, you're going to have an item in it, an object, maybe a pencil or maybe flowers or whatever it is. You have a line. It might be from a movie. It might be and then you might have a theme that it has to follow some theme. The cool thing about the 48-hour is that you're competing with different genres, because genre is one of them. So one group might have a buddy film, one might have a holiday film, one might have a science fiction or a musical or whatever. And so you're not just competing on exactly the same terms, but everybody then has to have a line of dialogue and an item in it. So a lot of people do that, and you could kind of tell. You could kind of tell the ones that they put some pre-work in, and that was okay as long as it met the criteria of the 3 or 4 things that you had to do. But yeah, we basically was pull something out of a hat, and your line is, and they pull it out of a hat. I could have been a contender or whatever, and then your object was a letter or a note. I think that's what it was on that.
Yeah, that was. I did my own one night stand for that one. That was making fun of Bill O'Reilly. Poor guy getting killed with a loofah and having a piece of pita bread thrown on him. Yeah, and he was writing a love letter. The line was.
There's a love letter. That's right.
I could have been somebody. I could have been contender. Yeah, we made those his. Dying words.
Yeah, we had one. Yeah, he was our We had one kid that was in the Scouts. He was of, I think he was Syrian or Lebanese descent. And so he was kind of like a soldier, that was in the movie. And he said, "Oh, give this to my mother." He has this splitter at the end. And he's in that thing down at, we call the basin down on the end of Pacific. And we had to climb a wrought iron spiky fence to get in there. So we didn't have any permission there, but we just kind of, let's do it. Let's get in and get it done. And it's motivation to move fast, work, feverishly and furiously, but efficiently. And that's, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So one other thing I did notice about you, you're out about town taking a lot of photos. So does being a filmmaker influence being a photographer, or the other way around?
It's interesting, yeah. And the two, I was just thinking about this the other day, that photography is a much more portable medium. I mean, you take a picture of something and boom, I go out with my phone and my DSLR, and I'll use both, because I can get that immediate kind of satisfaction of showing where I'm at and getting some buzz going, or maybe drawing people down to the event with the phone. And then the other one, I come back and I maybe process them. Sometimes I move them from the phone, from the big camera to the computer to my phone, so I can run them through Instagram and put some cool effect on them. And it's just crazy the amount of work sometimes it takes to do that. And it's a lot of it I don't get paid for. I do it because I love it. I go dancing at the Levee on Saturdays. It's my gym. It's where I go to get my exercise. I'm down 22 pounds in a month and a half. And people love it. People love to have a picture of themselves taken when they're having a good time. Mm-hmm. They really do, and it's become something they expect of me. Not that it's an obligation, but it's something that I truly love. And I love our city. I think we got a beautiful city. I do a lot of architectural stuff. I love the events, things like car shows. And like I just did an event that was for the Dream Factory, Kansas City. We had 14 photographers donate their time, 4 tribute bands, one that does Stevie Nicks, one was Poison tribute band, one was Elton John tribute band, another one AC/DC. And great band, they did the same thing. They volunteer their time, they raise money for the kids in the Dream Factory so they can go to Disneyland or whatever their wish is. And I was just came across something, it's always around Mother's Day, that you said, you don't know, you might have taken the last picture that kid has with their family. It's a really fun event. Or maybe they get well, and that's something that everything that goes around an organization getting behind you, a lot of times actually heals these kids, which is a really cool thing. So I love volunteering. My folks did a lot of volunteering in the church we grew up in, and it's just kind of in my blood. And I think whenever you do something good, things come back to you in ways you never really expect. If you have to go out and think every time I step out of my door, I got to be making $100. You're probably going to be disappointed in this business.
Yes.
And it's just, if you've got a gift, whatever it is, if you're good at carpentry, if you're good at working on cars or, gardening, help your neighbor out. If you see somebody that looks like they're struggling with something, give them a hand, and they'll do the same for you. For me, it's organizing and accounting paperwork. So I got friends who help me with that. I help them with something else. And, go take their family pictures at Loose Park, and they come over and help me organize my house. So it's a fun way to get to know people and share your talents with them.
Well, cool. All right. That's a great interview.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate you doing it. I appreciate what you're doing here. And everybody, get out there. IFC meets on Wednesdays. Come see us. And at the, what's that called? The Buffalo Room at
Buffalo Room,
Westport Flea Market.
Yes. Yeah.
Do a lot of great events. We have film festivals, 3 or 4 of them a year. Mm-hmm. There's something out there for everybody. So get involved. Thank you again, Michael.
Yeah, no problem. My special thanks to Pat Lamb for allowing me the opportunity to do this interview and to kick off this podcast. I will include Unfiltered and Mike from Orlando in the show notes, as well as a link to the Independent Filmmakers Coalition of Kansas City. In terms of supporting this podcast, there are a couple things you can do. 1, tell your friends about it, help spread the word. And 2, if you're so inclined, I will include on our website a link to my Patreon account, and you can give as you see fit. will not only be paying for this podcast, but also any projects that I might be doing, film or otherwise. The address for Patreon is patreon.com/Mike Chernevsky. patreon.com/MikeCzerniewski. So thank you again for listening today. We will be back next time with another excellent interview. And we're going to close things off with just a taste of Unfiltered. Take care.
Maybe you should consider a fourth question. Are you a pathological liar?
This podcast is Uncalled For is hosted, produced, and edited by Mike Chernevsky. Opening music is Iron Bacon by Kevin MacLeod at Unfiltered.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Outro music is How You Feel provided by freestockmusic.com. Additional music included Morocco Sting by Kevin MacLeod at Unfiltered.com. Licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time.